Welcome to the Wild Physio podcast with your host, Andrew Wild. Today we have everyone's favorite dietitian back, Charlie Abra. How are you, mate?
Hey gang, how we doing?
Mate, it's so good to have you back. It's been a while since we did a podcast, and I've been saying for weeks that we need to get this done, and finally the stars have aligned, and here we are.
Here we are, man. Online this time.
Online, yeah, it's a little bit different. How's everything going in your world? So Charlie's now working full time in a hospital up in Gosford and also doing some work at Wild Physio on the side. He's really hustling.
Yeah, trying to. It's been good. It's been great to get some clinical experience full time. Also, just good to have a full-time job where kind of weekends free mostly. Yeah, to kind of have some good seniors around me to get better experience and more feedback on dietetics, especially as a kind of a recent going out of uni. So yeah, loving that side of things. And the commute isn't the best from Newcastle, but you kind of get used to it.
What's the commute? About an hour and a bit?
Yeah, about an hour on the train. We train every day. There's a couple
Oh,
of you
you
guys.
train it, right? I
Yeah.
thought you were driving, right?
No, I train. 'Cause it's literally it's quicker door to door on the train than it is to drive. Just
Really?
bit of traffic in the mornings, especially in Gosford.
Yeah, right.
Um,
When we put this up on YouTube, people are going to know that your nickname's Chaz because down the bottom,
yeah.
bottom left of your screen,
I put
it's
Chaz. I put Chaz.
got with three Z's.
Yeah,
So for the listeners, we're just going to go with Chaz.
perfect.
Zzz, zzz.
Put that in the podcast description. Just like Chaz was the
Chaz is back.
Chaz is back. Oh
We're
God,
thinking of making this
buzz
a
cut.
regular. Yeah, I know you got the buzz cut, looking good, mate. I like it. It's a good it's a good addition.
Thanks, mate.
What prompted the cut? Did you just get some clippers and just go
Well,
bang?
oh, screw it. No. Always wanted to do it, and I was kind of getting sick of my hair being long. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how chicks do it. I was like, screw it. If I love it, I'll just probably keep this rest of my life. So I probably will just keep
Are
this.
you just gonna buzz the rest of your life?
Well, I don't even buzz it myself. I get a barber to do it. It's pretty cheap, $25. Do like a little fade in the sides, and then but I have to do it every 2 weeks because with short haircuts, you kind of have to keep it short.
You need to get one of those things. I've seen them online. It's kind of like a circular thing, and you grab it and you put it on your head and just kind of rub it on on your head, and it cuts it. You should get one of those.
I feel like you're setting me up here for something. I'm gonna end up getting no hair. You know, just make me bald.
Just
Kill me with hair.
slice half your scalp off.
Yeah, yeah. And it'll bleach at the same time.
We should do it. Do a little bleach.
Buzz bleach.
Yeah, buzz bleach. Look
If
like
this
Eminem, mate.
if this podcast goes viral, I'll do it.
We might make this a regular occurrence going forward. So we were thinking about it, what the podcast is going to look like going forward, and I might do some individual podcasts here and there, but Chaz and I will get on and probably do one regularly with him, say two, maybe every 3 weeks, something like that.
Agreed. Yeah, it'd be good. Kind of more conversational style things, kind of talk about life, training, business, whatever, but also like some physio, nutrition side of things as well.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit similar to the first podcast I ever had, hybrid therapist podcast with my the co-host back then, Andrew Elias. So I think that's probably the way to go forward. The only downside is we're doing it on a Saturday, mate.
Yeah, mate. I mean, try and figure out a day during the week where I have a rest day and we can do it. It still has to be late after work, probably like 7 o'clock
Can't
PM.
do it on the train,
Mate, it'd be quite annoying for the listeners, I reckon.
would it?
Have some Eshe is playing music in the background.
That's good chat. So one of the topics we're going to roll with today was processed versus unprocessed food.
Yeah.
And I suppose my first question for you would be, should you completely avoid eating processed food?
Answer that simply and short, no, you shouldn't avoid it. And we go into some definitions and what's the difference between it throughout. But short answer, no, processed food's fine. If you're going to eliminate processed food, you pretty much be eating nothing. Very difficult nowadays to have anything that's minimal processing to it. Also, I want to apologize. I was sick this week, so if I clear my throat throughout this, it's I'm not crying. I know it's emotional,
It
being sick,
sounds a little deeper, mate. It's a bit more of a baritone voice today. So
more masculine.
yeah, very masculine. Well done.
So I guess we'll start with what does process actually mean? And simply, is any change made to the food from its original state? So it could be like minimal, what like minimal, such as like washing your apple is just processing, or you can go as far as like a manufactured packaged cake, like so far from the original form, many additives is created this hyper palatable thing you barely even think it's food. So there's a spectrum there. We can kind of go into the categories there. So unprocessed and minimally processed is like foods that's like kind of the natural form, altered slightly, usually for like storage slash safety. And then second would be processed culinary ingredients. So it's like extracted from its refined natural foods. So example, oils, butter, honey, stuff that's kind of extracted. And then processed foods. So foods made by combined groups, one or two, to probably enhance flavor and its life. So example, cheese, canned fish, bread, yogurt. And then you got ultra processed foods, which is, sorry, losing it.
You're right, mate.
I
I can
reckon,
get through this bit if you want. So, group four is ultra processed foods.
Lord.
So, formulations packed with additives, flavorings, and refined ingredients. So, we're thinking soft drinks, sweets, packaged snacks, instant meals, fast food, that sort of stuff. So, they're the four groups.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's kind of a spectrum there. And I'd say processed foods usually has like a negative connotation, but I guess context and what you're actually having it for is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it, something I'd like to get across to people is s- this is a good way to kind of frame it, right? So, if we had two groups and they were both put into a calorie deficit, with calories and protein equated, and one group consumed a large amount of processed food and the other group ate a minimally amount of processed food, would both groups lose the same amount of fat if all conditions were equal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why?
Well, calories don't usually be affected by the level processed. Obviously, ultra high processed foods are a bit more palliative and probably calorie dense. However, if the calories are matched, it doesn't matter what it's coming from. Back to the study of like the guy ate Twinkies only for a set amount of day and time. Hyper processed, still lost weight. So yeah,
Yeah, there's a really interesting study in 2019 by Hall et al., and they took 20 adults, 10 males, 10 females, and they received either a processed or unprocessed diet for 2 weeks, and then they switched to the other diet for a further 2 weeks. And over that period of time, the results of the study compared each participant to themselves and analyzed the differences in the amount of food they ate. And they found that the total energy intake was on average 500 calories higher when on the ultra processed diet with an increased consumption of carbohydrates and fat, but not protein. And it showcases the fact that, and because of this study design as well, where they're allowed to continue to eat as much as they want on that diet, whether it be processed or unprocessed. So the moral of the story there is if you are eating a lot of processed food, it's easier to overconsume calories because it's so palatable and
Mhm.
you want to keep going back for more and more and more. And a lot of people will say, oh, sugar's the devil, fat's the devil, salt's the devil. But the problem with these type of processed foods is you're adding salt, fat, and sugar as a combination, and that's why it tastes so good. If you just get a teaspoon of sugar and shove it in your mouth, it's not that tasty, really. It's the combination that makes it really, really palatable and tasty. So chocolate, chips, these type of things, they're just so easy to just hook into. Like you have one Malteser and fuck, you want about 20.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah, and it also that impact on appetite regulation as well because you do want to crave it again, and it doesn't matter if you're full, you always like want to crave. Even after a big meal, having dinner, oh, I could go for something sweet, have a couple. Oh, I could have a couple more. You're probably full from dinner, but that appetite regulation gets ruined as well. Yeah.
yeah, and the one of the big problems with the
Mhm.
processed foods are the lack of fiber as well.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to touch on. The lack of fiber is obviously something that is not ideal for longevity, long and for health long term. If someone was just eating like highly processed foods out of a packet, McDonald's, these type of things, the amount of fiber they're getting would be nowhere near the recommended amount.
Yeah, yeah. So it's obviously being, especially ultra processed foods, they're removing a lot of the fiber throughout the processing, and usually they're lower protein as well. For example, like liquid calories as well. So soft drinks, juices, frappes, whatever it is, they're minimal fiber, minimal protein. So not only is like that poor for satiety and appetite, it makes you super hungry after having it. It's usually refined carbohydrates as well, and the fat combo, like you mentioned. It triggers that dopamine reward system. Oh gosh, I want so much of that, more of that. But I guess chronically having that as your majority of your diet, you're not getting enough fiber in, was like I mentioned, poor for appetite regulation, but also leads to like bowel issues later on. Even bowel cancer can be a massive causation, and there's like type 2 diabetes, like poor insulin blood sugar regulation. The list goes on for like poor fiber intake. So that's a massive component that you mentioned about ultra processed foods.
And in terms of fiber intake, roughly per thousand calories you consume, you'd want roughly 15 grams of fiber. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. If you really want to go into the nitty-gritties of maybe a client that actually knows how much they're having, but you can go even more simple than that, and it's about 25 grams for females, 30 grams for males, if you don't know how much you're having throughout the day as well.
While we're touching on fiber as well, this is something that I'd like to get across to people that if you're bulking and you're especially a larger man, so say for instance you're 90 kilos plus or something like that, or 80 plus, you would most likely, if you're bulking, have to consume a fair amount of processed foods to meet your calorie needs. Because then, if you if you don't do that, what will happen is, and I've had this problem because I have to eat roughly 4,500 calories a day to put on weight. You'll consume way too much fiber if you only eat unprocessed food or quote unquote good food that's not processed. So we need to get that across to the listeners as well because I feel terrible if I just eat unprocessed food all the time
Yeah,
when my calorie needs are so high.
yeah, yeah. What are some list things you have throughout the day that are more processed than others that you think are still suitable for your given scenario?
For me, yeah, so I love ice cream.
Mhm.
So I'll normally have some ice cream during the day. Look, frozen berries, they're not processed per se, but they're still in a packet. I'll have peanut butter, honey, in a shake typically. I'll often have some chocolate, muesli bars, I suppose would be technically processed.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
it depends on the day, but like they're the things that I jack my total calorie intake up with
Yeah,
typically. And I'm not afraid to have things like, and I'll keep calories up my sleeve for things like this when I maybe have some pizza or something like that that is a little bit more calorie dense. I'm
yeah,
not afraid to have some chips or something like that here and there as well. But the majority of my diet is very good. So I would say, and we use this regularly with clients that 80% of your diet should be filled with nutrient dense, good quality food, and then 20% you can technically have a little bit of fun with, and it's okay to have some processed food within that 20%. So most of my diet is very good, but I do definitely have some fun with it for sure.
yeah. And I'd like to say, like, go back to the 80/20 rule for a moment. I'd like to look at the whole week as that model and not per day because
Yep.
some people like Andrew at the moment have a kitchen that's going into renovation. So obviously it's a bit harder to have minimal processed foods when you don't have the cooking appliances or someone else that's gone traveling for a couple of days for work. Probably gonna rely on more convenient processed options during that time frame. So you should look at the week as a whole, even month as a whole, if you kind of really zoom out. And it's not I hate the negative connotation that's with processed foods because everything you mentioned today is processed to some level. Like ice cream to yogurt, there's like minimal level of processing difference between them two. They're both super processed. Um, both have their own unique roles in a diet. So, example, ice cream usually more palliative slash more calorie dense for someone like Andrew that requires those calories per day. But there's still that negative code connotations could still be used for high protein yogurt has like half the calories and way more protein.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to reiterate the negative connotation of processed foods has to be debunked a bit. And yeah, kind of back to 80/20 rule, I think 80% should be it. I don't even want to even say unprocessed because that's like just not even an achievable goal. I think minimal processed foods 80% of the time, and then 20% being the ultra processed.
Would you deem it sort of nutrient dense, that 80%?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
nutrient dense, minimal processed foods. I'd say a lot of minimal processed foods are generally nutrient dense. I mean, you can go the random route of saying like, I don't know, even water like isn't super nutrient dense, but it's minimal, like it's not processed at all. So it's even like it's like I don't know, given the situation with all these things as
Yeah,
well.
well, like even breakfast for me, most mornings, because I have to get up to the clinic pretty early, I'll normally smash some Weet Bix bites with some fruit or something like that, just to kind of kickstart the day. And then I'll normally have like some yogurt, a high protein yogurt, or a chalky milk
Yeah, of
at sort of mid morning at
course.
sort of eight. Well, mid morning for me is like 8:30, something like that when I get hungry again. So like most people would look at that and be like, well, a lot of that food that you're eating for breakfast is very processed. But from a nutrition standpoint, it's actually on point for my desired goals.
Yeah,
And the total amount of calories I need, the amount of protein, the amount of fiber that I'm getting from that is actually quite good.
yeah. So you got to break it down a bit more into the given context and more there's more levels to it. And also one thing I want to speak about quickly was food processing doesn't automatically mean nutrient destruction as well. So a lot of processing does kill nutrients, but depending on the method, actually can preserve it. So example, freezing is a level of process. However, that kind of preserves nutrients in fruit, like you mentioned, frozen berries, snap frozen veggies, stuff like that. It preserves the nutrients that you would usually lose if the fruit went off. Also canning, it can like canning like canned tomatoes or whatever it is. Kind of lose some vitamins, but like maintains most minerals and fiber. And then fortification is a level of nutrient of processing as well. For example, fortification through milk alternatives like almond milk, soy milk, very processed. It's not natural, is it? But they've usually got added vitamin D and calcium to it, which is fortification to make it more of a substitute to milk, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They're not got the little almonds and squeezing the almonds,
Exactly.
milking the almonds. So if a client came in and saw you and they were worried about frozen chips versus getting their potatoes and cutting up their potatoes and then making their own chips,
hmm
what would you say to them and what would be the recommendation, especially if they were highly concerned about them being processed
Mm.
comparatively to the real deal, I suppose you put it.
I guess first I'll define the difference between the two. Obviously, a bit more processed than cutting up the potatoes yourself, putting a bit of spray oil and putting them in the air fryer. So I'll debunk the issue that is there's some additives. Look at the ingredient list. What's added? Probably a little bit more fat to make it like brown easier. It's been frozen. It's already been pre-cut. There's probably a bit of more herbs and maybe even some sodium added to it. If I list all those things and it's not a concern to them, what I've listed, I'm like, all right, there's no concern with having the frozen ones. I guess, however, the only concern would be is if my client was main goal was weight loss and you just like thought, oh, like normal potato cut up yourself and the frozen one's the same calories because it's the same item. I'm like, okay, that's not quite true. There's probably a bit more fat added to the frozen ones. But if the goal isn't weight loss and actually weight gain, like Andrew's has been in the past, I would actually probably steer towards the pre-frozen ones. It's convenient, saves more time, probably more palatable, and it's probably slightly more calorie dense as well. Similar fiber intake, I don't see an issue.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on what the person does with the potatoes that they're getting and cutting up, because they could layer them with so much oil that all of a sudden they're actually more calories per 100 grams than the frozen potatoes or the frozen chips.
Yeah.
So that's another point because, people are very, they just go berserk with their olive oil and very liberal with it and just chuck it everywhere. And all of a sudden it's very calorie dense.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I guess you kind of define what your goals are in terms of that. If someone came to me with high blood pressure, I'm like, all right, let's look at the options here in terms of these are some frozen chip options that are actually lower sodium, like no salt added. And like, okay, we look at the back label here. There's not much salt in this product. Yes, it's processed. Yes, it's slightly more calorie dense, but if neither of those are your concern, I think it's good to go. So you really have to kind of define what your goal is when looking at a processed food item.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting you bring up the yogurt because a lot of people would look at high protein yogurt and think, oh, this isn't processed
Yeah.
because it's so low calorie. I think there's this notion that because something is low calorie and high protein, it's not processed and it's good for you and it's better for you than something that would be the similar amount of macronutrients and it's not processed at all.
Mhm.
So that's something that we need to make sure people understand,
Yeah,
as you've mentioned already.
that's a good point. I'd say yogurt is processed, but even if you were compared to like ultra processed, I'd say protein powder is ultra processed, and
Mm.
that's lower calorie again compared to yogurt, and it's most people use it in their day-to-day life, especially athletes. Ultra processed, it's the protein straight out of the milk products if it's whey, and it's great, it's useful. So yeah, it's a perfect example of how it can't be just defined as bad, the level of
I,
processing.
I think something you said before really resonated with me is it being convenient to buy the frozen chips. Like for me, sometimes I don't have the time to get potatoes, cut them all up, and then go from there. Because it's probably adding, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to my daily routine. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
I'd probably prefer to eat less if I was kind of trying to match the calories. I'd probably prefer to eat less of the chips and not have to deal with cutting them up
Yeah.
and then getting them ready rather than just opening the packet and bang, chucking them in the air fryer.
Agreed. And what's some people are just so busy that if that convenient option isn't there, the next option is the buying out food.
Exactly.
So you really have to like, okay, we realize that home cooked meals 3 days a week, 3 meals a day is not like sustainable or realistic. All right, let's look at the processed options that are still better than buying out.
Yeah, totally. And as Charlie was saying before, going through a bit of a renovation at the moment. I'm only dealing with a microwave, air fryer, and a fridge really at the moment. So I technically have been eating probably more processed food than I normally do, purely because I've been using pre-made meals more regularly that are heated in the microwave or using an air fryer. So, but at the same time, like my body weight hasn't changed at all. And one of the ways, because I'm kind of just maintaining at the moment, but one of the ways that I sort of hack my nutrition is I have 3 or 4 meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that I go to usually. And I kind of don't really care about eating different stuff all the time, especially during the week. I'm pretty happy just eating my normal meals. So I'd get breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then I'd have a shake probably in the afternoon. I'd probably have one other snack as well. So I'm probably having maybe 5 feedings, I suppose you'd put it per day. But
Yeah,
I know that the macronutrients of each meal for breakfast and each meal for lunch and dinner are all the same or similar.
yeah,
A similar amount of protein and fiber, they're the big ones, and then total amount of calories. And that's one way I've hacked it just to make my lifestyle easier. And I don't get as much decision fatigue with that as well. I'm not trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to have for dinner because I know that these are the options. I'll probably go with that tonight. I'll have the chicken option tonight. Tomorrow I might go for that steak option or whatever it is.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm the same. Yeah. I eat similar things each day, change some things up. Usually the processed helps with convenience, hitting my nutrient goals, whatever it is for bulking at the moment. I utilize a lot of that stuff and even sauces. I love sauce in my foods. Makes it more palatable, a bit more nutrient dense, I guess, like or guess more energy dense. And it's just like small things you can add to your meal that kind of make it more enjoyable.
Yeah, there's so many options now as well with sauces and other condiments that are either higher calorie for people that are trying to put weight on or lower calorie for people that are either trying to maintain or lose weight.
Yeah.
So, like I have a mix in my fridge of both the higher calorie and the lower calorie, depending on what I'm doing or what I've done during the day. You know, if I've gone out for lunch or something and I know I've had a blowout, I've had a few beers or something like that. Well, I might go for the lower calorie option later on that night, or even just the next day, just to kind of get back on track for the weekly calories. So I'm kind of maintaining my weight.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really intuitive as well. We kind of have that own self-reflection on like, okay, I know what's in food. I know this is still processed, but I've gone the sugar-free barbecue sauce with my less chips at this meal because I've had a fair bit yesterday. That's yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to get across to the audience about this debate on processed versus unprocessed food?
Yeah. I'd say um here's some foods that kind of appear healthy that are processed that probably not as healthy as you think. I'm gonna go protein bars. There's some protein bars out there that have more sugar than Mars bars, or even like the Mars bar that just has added protein and slap a protein label on it. And oh, this must be, and if anything, has a higher level of process than the Mars bar did. Um, we'll go like the veggie chips or a
Yes.
option like that.
Yep.
Super high in starch. It's like the product is starch and oil. It's like a
Yep.
deep fried. It's in like a unsaturated fat, but there's like three different type of fat sources in that. I
I see that all the time. Like I've been over the years, I remember being on a golf course and one of my mates pulled out these veggie chips and they're like, "Oh, do you want some of these?" I'm like, "Fuck no, I don't want some of those. They look terrible." He's like, "Oh yeah, but they're healthier." And I'm like, "If you actually look at per 100 grams, some of them actually have more calories than normal chips.
yeah.
Like you get your Red Rock delis that actually taste amazing compared to these shitty pea snaps or whatever the fuck they are. They're so much just like taste like absolute shit." And they're not as healthy as you think.
Yeah, yeah. And you look at the ingredient list on them. I think it's like, I don't want to quote anything, but it's very low percentage in actually being veggie.
Exactly.
And it's majority fat and oil that makes it so palatable. But how can something so tasty be so healthy at the end of the day? Um, and I guess another one would be like natural or gluten-free snacks. Don't always have like if they're gluten-free or I don't know, if they claim natural, I'd like to question what's natural about it, especially if it's packaged. And if gluten-free things doesn't mean automatically mean it's healthier, it's probably another level of processing to make it gluten-free. They've done something else to make it kind of form the way it has without gluten. And then things like smoothies, juices, loaded added sugars, stuff like that, kind of like pre-packaged juices sometimes. Yeah, not any better than like having something else like a sugar-free Coke or something.
Yeah, I typically avoid juices because I don't really love juice, and I just feel like wasting calories on a juice just doesn't make sense to me.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think the big thing is all these food companies are very, very, very good at marketing, and they'll use terminology that sucks people in.
Mhm.
So natural, gluten free, even just having vegetable on the packet of chips, it'll suck people in thinking that they're getting vegetables when the percentage of vegetables would be not much or if any.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've noticed, and you and I have shared a couple of funny memes about this, is a lot of these companies now are just jamming protein into something that probably doesn't want protein jammed into it, just to make it seem more healthy. And but you actually look at the percentage of protein in it, it's actually quite low comparatively to something that is high protein as a percentage of the total macronutrients in it. So, say for instance, whey protein isolate is very high in protein. The high protein yogurt is very high in protein.
Hmm.
But a muesli bar, like you look down the muesli bar aisle now, and there's all these protein muesli bars, but they're actually not that high in protein. Like, and a lot of them taste like shit, in my opinion. I'd much rather just have a normal muesli bar and keep my protein for other cool things during the day.
And like a complete protein source as well, because
Exactly. An
like,
amino acid profile that
yeah,
we're after.
yeah, which we've spoken about before. I don't need to go into that in this one. Yeah, I think that's a massive part. Is like what is the goal of the product? Like I actually read the back label. Like some of these protein muesli bars have like 5 grams of protein, and I'm like, that's like 2 more grams than the original muesli bar they made. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that. You're walking, I often see new and improved things at Woolworths or Coles, and I'll give them a try just to we'll have a taste for one, but then I'll have a look at the numbers between the two products, and it just doesn't often make sense. The other thing to factor in as well is if it's got high protein on the packet, it's often more expensive,
Hmm.
but it's it's not that high protein that you're really not getting much out of it, and you've got other protein sources that would technically be cheaper per 100 grams.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like just any meat sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
Just think of, well, obviously if you're vegetarian, there's other options. There's plenty of options now. And even like things like tofu and stuff are processed, but they're great. Tempeh, great protein sources. Apologies. I think
Mate,
you
you
should
got to
do
get
it.
this sorted.
I know. Terrible, terrible day to do a podcast. Tell you what. Oh,
What's wrong with
Christ.
your voice, mate? Get it sorted. You need a V like I got. We
Sponsorship.
should we should get a sponsorship by V or the Oxy Shred.
OxyShred. Apparently it's a new brand.
It is. It's totally new.
Oh,
Totally.
goodness gracious. I guess next topic I want to talk about, if my voice allows it, how processing can affect exercise and recovery and performance. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but processing isn't the enemy in performance and nutrition. It often makes things optimal in a feeling like makes feeling possible, I guess. For example, like some processed foods are designed to deliver nutrients quickly, efficiently, and predictably, which is exactly what athletes and individuals need. So like convenient energy, rapid absorption, and like consistent macronutrient delivery. So example like carb gels, even Powerades provide sugars, electrolytes, whatever it is, the product, just examples. And yes, these are just like they are processed products, but they have like a intention and like there's a role they play in exercise and performance. And the same again with like protein powders, hyper processed, but they really kind of make sure that you're meeting the goals that is required through these processings. What are some things you have in your day that you'd say you have for performance, if
Yeah,
any?
it's a. I'll put. Actually, I'll go off on this random tangent first. So I think another reason why athletes really enjoy these prepackaged foods is they know what they're going to get.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is at the Olympics, this happens a fair bit where some of the Olympians don't actually eat much of the food that's in the food court because they don't want to get sick. They
yeah,
don't want to run the gauntlet. So they eat a lot of prepackaged food. And a good example of say, for instance, like a marathon runner and any type of long distance runner, roughly the amount of carbohydrates in their diet's about 60 to 70% of their total calories is carbohydrates. So they're eating, and that was actually on the Sprint documentary. If you've watched that, the couple of the sprinters were asked about food and what they eat, and they said a lot of people probably think that we eat protein all the time, but they're like, no, we just eat a shitload of carbs.
yeah,
And they eat a lot of prepackaged stuff because they know what they're going to get and they're not running that gauntlet. They're not going down to the local Indian restaurant or the local Thai place or this new restaurant around the corner that's opened up and have a meal there because they don't want to get sick and then potentially influence their performance going forward. So, answer to your question, what do I have for performance? So if I train in the morning, I really like just going for just Weet-Bix in the morning
yeah.
before I train. I don't go too many. I normally have about, say, 100 grams, something like that, of maybe Weet-Bix bites or Weet-Bix, and then just hook into it. I'll probably add some sugars in there. So, say, for instance, some honey.
Mm.
If I'm doing, and that's if I'm doing, say, a weight session, but if I'm doing something that's a little bit more intense, e.g., playing tennis, or if I'm going for a run or a sprinting session like we've got at Wild Physio on Tuesday mornings at 6:15, if anyone wants to come.
Shameless plug. Very good.
Shameless plug. I'll just have something really small. So I'll have a banana, maybe with some honey or a muesli bar. If I haven't got the time, I'll just quickly grab something like that.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep it really simple. And on the golf course, I'll typically take a couple of muesli bars. I'll have a protein bar, a cold pressed protein bar, which actually has decent macronutrients. It's not a shitty protein bar like those Mars bar ones. Um, Beef jerky because it doesn't kind of melt and it's not too bad on a golf course. And I'll typically take some lollies on a golf course as well, just because if I feel a little bit flat, I'll just want just something that's quick and easy to digest.
Yep.
And I don't really feel while I'm walking around the course that I want something really heavy. So there are a couple of things that I use. And if I play tennis, I'll typically take lollies and also my electrolyte drink that I use from Bulk Nutrients. Please
Yep.
sponsor us. Um, they do an electrolyte plus, and it has the electrolytes plus it has some sugars in there as well. So I'll sip on that plus my water during the tennis match. So I'm getting the necessary sort of bump in glucose, but I'm still getting the electrolytes as well while I'm sweating, especially in summer.
Yeah, perfect. It's a perfect example of how you can utilize processed foods into your training schedule as well. And on
Yeah.
the same, I don't really have any caffeine from processed foods. I mean, coffee, some sort of process, but I have like full sugar Powerades most time before my training, and that's probably, or I mean, obviously you mentioned muesli bars stuff like that throughout the day, but I think mo the most thing I use for performance is probably just full sugar sports drinks and protein powder as well.
And you have the full sugar sports drink because you need the sugar before you train, as opposed to, I feel like that's another thing that people kind of get sucked into. They're like, oh, they see the no sugar and they're like, oh, I'm just going to get the no sugar. And I've talked to my boys that I coach at Review about this. I want them to get the full sugar
Yeah,
Powerade, not the no sugar, because they need the sugars.
yeah, absolutely. Just because things are low calorie doesn't mean it depends on your goal at the moment and what's the purpose of the process item.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Is there anything else that you wanted to get across to the listeners about this topic?
No, I think I've covered all things that my voice has allowed. I want to apologize again for just I don't know what's been happening to my voice at the moment. Like too much talking this morning, but yeah,
Well, it was great. The first one down, and I think, yeah, every couple of weeks going forward, we'll record a podcast with Chaz and I.
yeah.
And feel free to reach out if you've got a topic that you want us to discuss,
Yeah.
and we'll dive into it.
Even do a segment at the end, potentially people asking questions.
Yeah,
And we do a segment at the end doing Q&A of the recent asked questions we can go through. I like that.
sounds good. Thanks for your time, mate. We'll do it again soon, and as usual, stay strong.